Hi, welcome to Community of Care Conversations. My name is Brett Frankenberg with Apex Health Advocates. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Shawn Leo of the Leo Law Group. Thanks for joining us, Shawn. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
You bet. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about your law practice and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'm located in Solana Beach, and I've been practicing as a solo practitioner now for 6 years. And actually a practicing attorney for about 18. Started out in New York in investment banking. And I'm thrilled to be here and be of service to the San Diego community and generally really the Southern California community.
Oh, that's awesome. So I know one of the things that we talked about when we were preparing for this interview is we talked about, and this kind of surprised me, there's a lot of areas of an estate plan, and that's your expertise. And so there were a lot of things that people were omitting, and really we spoke specifically about dementia. And so I'd like to dive in there. So let's talk a little bit about what happens when an estate plan doesn't include dementia and provisions for dementia.
Well, I would say that generally estate plans really don't address dementia, and it's a huge gap. It's something I bring up to clients, and I'll ask them, do you have a family history of dementia, and is it something that we should explore? The one thing that is included typically in estate plans that I offer is a dementia directive. However, it's really for the end of the road decisioning. It's not for the possible long period of time that can lead up to the end. So there is a gap.
Okay. And you often talked about how, people always say, I don't want to be a burden to my family, right? And of course, dementia is probably that prototypical case. So how do you advise families when they come to you and say, I don't want to be a burden to my family?
Well, I hear it almost every time I do an estate plan, right? Especially for clients who are a little bit more advanced in age. They say, I just want to age gracefully. I'm happy. I've got my kids, my grandkids, everyone's doing well. I don't want to be a burden. But what does that mean? Right? And that's always the question I ask. So tell me, what does that mean to you when you say you don't want to be a burden? And often it's puzzling to them, right? They're like surprised by the question. The truth is they just want to be able to live autonomously without having to be dependent upon someone, right? So that's kind of what I try to get them to explain. How are you going to live autonomously, for a continued period of time without becoming dependent on someone? And often it takes multiple questions to get there, but it'll start them thinking about, okay, wait a second, maybe I should be thinking about who's closest to me, who might I live with, and would someone want to live with me, possibly? And sometimes there's just no one nearby.
And there are kind of layers to that too, right? So I mean, there's the financial layer, there's the social layer, the familial layer. So it's kind of hard to peel all that back, I would imagine, but that's kind of what you do in that process.
It is. And again, it's just the start of the conversation. Sometimes people are very decisive on the point, and they'll say, "You know what? I don't. I think I'm okay. I don't really want to explore too deep." And sometimes it'll lead to maybe a half-hour conversation in my office, and they say, "I have to think about this more. I've got to talk to some family members, and I'm going to take some more time to make a plan." I like when the latter happens, right? Because then I know they've really considered it. When someone answers me so definitively, so decisively, no, that they don't want to explore the topic, it's a red flag to me. And look, I'm here to provide a service. I want to be as helpful as possible. And so I always say to them, I'm always going to be here if you change your mind. You want to explore the topic. It's not an all or nothing proposition right now. And certainly not after you've signed your estate plan. We could always revisit it. But I'm going to keep you on my radar.
Yeah, I think that's, and I run into the same thing. A lot of times, as an advocate, people say, hey, what you do sounds great. Probably the same for you. Hey, it would be great to have that plan in place, but I'm not at the place right now where I'm ready for that. And I know that we've talked about the fact that if you really have any assets, if you have any property, now is the right time, no matter really how old you are. Yeah.
It certainly is. And a question I ask every single client is, are you working with a financial planner? Do you have a financial advisor?
Yeah.
Because it's not me, right?
Right.
I can help you put all of the legal documents in place to protect against long-term issues. I can help you to avoid very exorbitant cost of probate, minimize some of the other emotional type issues that could come to the picture after passing. But I do not do any of the financial planning at all. That's
Sure.
not in my wheelhouse.
So then, really deciding how you want to age, you really obviously, again, going back to the dementia topic, it's critical that families are working with you long before the person we're talking about loses capacity, right? And that's something that we did talk about. And I know you did kind of speak a little bit to the financial side, but could you talk a little bit more about maybe getting involved with those wealth managers from the perspective of, really considering capacity? And we're talking about, of course, mental capacity.
Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. If they have an identified wealth manager and they put in place an estate plan, including a power of attorney that springs into action on their incapacity, great. Because then that wealth manager going forward is going to have someone who will stand in their shoes and be able to give them direction. Okay, so
That's really important.
that is included normal course of an estate plan. What may not be included is projecting how much memory care will cost. And memory care, as you know, is extremely expensive. So the moment that a family becomes aware of a dementia diagnosis, they really have to reevaluate everything, including their financial picture. And that means being transparent with your financial planner advisor and telling them this is the diagnosis, we need to revisit everything.
Yeah, that's really well said. So it's a powerful topic. And so one of the things we also talked about in the context of that is solo agers. And so can we talk a little bit about how a dementia diagnosis might still lead to conservatorship even if someone has children?
Yeah, and I mentioned it a little bit, probably indirectly earlier in our conversation. You may have a big family, but they may not be near, or they're just unable to help you at that particular time. It's not because they don't want to, it's because they literally can't, because people have their own obligations within their own lives. So whether it's they've got their own family, they've got a career, other issues, a dementia diagnosis can require 24/7 care, right? So that's a huge burden to put on a family member. So
And are there cases? I mean, there are cases, of course, where the family is unwilling. And what happens in that situation?
where the family is unwilling to step in, it's a very emotionally charged situation, in particular where the diagnosis hits and the mental decline is quick, because there's denial, right? There's a want to feel that things are still okay, that there's still time to figure things out, but sometimes there's not, and you have to act really quickly to make sure that all of the appropriate legal documents are in place and all of the planning that will be needed for your family member starts to happen. Because as you probably know, unfortunately, one of the symptoms of dementia can be hostility and paranoia.
True.
So if someone starts to experience those, they'll reject the help that they need, including from family members. They'll shut everyone out. Yeah. So it becomes a very difficult situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's actually a really good segue to the last question I wanted to ask you, which was, we talked, a couple weeks ago, and you gave a really great explanation about how advance directives are really for end-of-life decisions as opposed to ongoing care decisions. And I think, for the benefit of those who are watching, I think that would be a really great place to wrap up.
Sure. So, well, if you look at an advanced healthcare directive, you can see that it truly is focused on end of life, right? It talks literally about your choice to prolong or not prolong life, whether you want to make organ donations, whether you authorize an autopsy if not legally required. So all of those things are contemplating the end. They're not contemplating a long potential period leading to the end, right? So if you're going to need help making decisions leading to the end, an advanced healthcare directive may not necessarily cover all of those decisions, that at least not the way that you want them to be covered, that may come up. And I think dementia certainly is one of them.
I agree. And I think that to me, that's a really important distinction, because I think most people really want to not really engage in long discussions about death or dying. and the result is they come to you and they probably wanted to get this done as quickly and as painlessly as they possibly can. And so they're really not accounting for a lot of the what ifs. And I think that was our goal in sitting down and talking about that today. So I appreciate you joining us here today. So again, my name is Brett Frankenberg with Apex Health Advocates. This is Shawn Leo with the Leo Law Office located in Solana Beach. We hope you got a lot out of this today, and we're looking forward to continuing interviews in this series. Thank you.